And this morning, literally this morning, I was sharing this reflection that I was having on social media. And it was about how it's tough to start communicating with children, but sometimes it's even more tough to communicate with our inner child. Right. And like while we're trying to grow up and everything, and it's like what you're saying, that we're irresponsible with all the feelings that were there, and we just move on. And we think when we move on, you've dealt with it.
Right.
But that healing that you're talking about is just, for me as well, like I always felt like I was someone who moved on, and I always felt like I was someone who like, oh, I didn't get affected by that. And then I started to see that actually I had behaviors in me that were complete reflections of a past pain. Right? Like there were behaviors in me that were reflections of a past guilt.
Right.
And then I realized that it's not that they just disappeared. It's that they were going to come out in a different way that was going to hurt future relationships. It was going to hurt present relationships. And for me, that's where I started to work through that, where I started to see actually what I saw in whatever it was, I'm now reflecting that. Let me look at that behavior and see how that behavior can be healed and transformed.
Right.
And what's the root of that? Does that make sense?
Completely. Yeah. And also I think people get confused even when you're like, no, I'm totally over that. I'm healed. You can still talk about things and be healed. You can still draw back on those things and say, it hurt me when it did hurt you when. But I think sometimes people are like, oh, you're done with that. You're like, why are you talking about this for so long or whatever? And it's like, that's also a form of my healing. I hate when other people who have not been through the trauma you have been through, any of us, because we've all gone through traumas, they want to tell you when to stop hurting. And that's not anybody's place to tell you when to stop hurting. And everybody has a different lifespan of pain, I think. Everybody will deal with things in different, what might be traumatizing to me might be nothing to you, and vice versa. And we can't invalidate people's feelings. That's only going to traumatize them more. And also shame them. I'm so over like the emotional shaming of what people do to other people. People can have their feelings and do what they want as long as they're realistic. You also have to step outside of your own self and be self-aware and say, okay, am I completely delusional? Am I making these? Because you could also, your mind, you can play tricks on, and you could start creating a false reality. As long as you're being, I think, really authentic and genuine about your feelings, I think it's okay to talk about your pains and traumas. I think especially if you're doing it in a way that's beneficial to other people, I think that's being responsible. But I think if you're just talking about negative stuff to talk about negative stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, shut up already.
Yeah.
You know, I think you just have to be responsible.
Yeah.